Over its lifetime, WoW has seen many armor sets, but virtually none of them would ever achieve such a legendary status as Warrior Tier 3, or how it's better known, Dreadnaught. It first entered the game in June 2006 with the release of the original Naxxramas. However, with TBC around the corner, few people would ever actually clear the raid, and even fewer would actually acquire the infamous set before it was made unattainable with the release of Wrath of the Lich King just a few years later. Today, as nearly 20 years have passed, the Dreadnaught Warrior is a near mythical sight. Never since has it been reforged. Until now. My journey of remaking the legendary Dreadnaught's battle gear started off with a bald man, whom I, for a short while, relieved of his gold cranium by giving him a neat little mohawk. I prepared the base for what would soon be his spiky horns, and modded my way down his head to block out the face guard, and indeed, connected it to the back of the mohawk. One of the most standout features of the Dreadnaught set is that the helmet has this monstrous looking mask underneath, with spooky teeth and a big jumpy jaw. I modeled it and made the helmet 3-dimensional, because that makes sense. Some of you might recall me talking about the horns not long ago. Well, I modeled them, which is inherently a bit of a fucky process with horns and impossible to edit into smooth footage. So instead, just enjoy me tweaking the shape a bit. His helmet done with, I moved on to model what would be one of indeed many skulls in this armor set, serving as the starting point for my initial idea for the gloves. I went off the original design a bit for this one and figured I would match them better to the shoulders. After all, they're neighbors, or soon to be. Regardless, I gave it some depth and extruded a long mouth, which would transition into an armor plate that I planned to paint in a way that it matches the jaw of the helmet, trying to integrate it with the rest of the set as much as I could. After all, this is Dreadnaught. And if ever there was a design I would not want to desecrate and face the wrath of the comment section, well, Dreadnaught would come to mind. The way that armor works in WoW is that it can either be painted onto the character model or a 3D piece stuck onto it. What Blizzard's pipeline does not allow for is to alter the shape of the character model itself. As always, I aimed to make my models so that they could hypothetically go into the actual game. So naturally, I made the leg plates to be particularly tedious to refit for all the different races without clipping issues. Because fuck you, hypothetical intern. Then after that, surprise surprise, another skull. This time, the big one. Yep, Dreadnaught's iconic shoulders. I outlined the eye sockets and nose hole, after which I pulled it all into place from side view. With all these skulls, you would honestly assume that this set was just pulled off the body of a dead Death Knight, but I'm here to tell you that this is not actually the case. Indeed, because there is lore, and it's not that. In classic WoW, Corfax, the Argent Dawn fella, tells us how it is. To quote him, the first suit of Dreadnaught armor was made exclusively for the Scarlet High Lord Mograine. Whilst donning the full suit, the High Lord himself looked to be a demon from the depths of the Nether. Aye, it was quite a sight to behold as Mograine would wade into 100 Scourge, Ashbringer held high, come out the other side in a cloud of dust and flames, enemies left in ashes beneath his feet. It was not until after his controversial death that the Death Knights and Warriors of Lordaeron would wear similarly fashioned suits in honor of the fallen hero. While the death of Mograine was a great victory for Kel'Thuzad, the resulting martyrdom would be felt until the end of the war. Where one did fall, many would rise. Huh. So that's 2 videos in a row where we talk about Alexandros Mograine. Oh, it also says that the armor was forged out of dark iron, which is just a beautiful instance of the never-ending classic WoW continuity, seeing as all that stuff, the dark iron business, was like, what, 5 patches ago at that point? And they still remembered. Anyway, but now I had gotten around to modeling the boots. Similar workflow where I keep in mind the limitations of WoW's character models, leaving the character himself how he is, but simply slapping 3D pieces onto the existing model. If I wanted to, I could have used one of the default boot models that regular gear uses and add my 3D pieces onto that, which some gear in the game does, but I've tried that in the past and I felt like it would just end up being too bulky, so I did it all from scratch, avoiding that bulkiness and giving myself maximum control over the shape. Then finally, I added 3D pieces onto the chest as well. I'm going all out with these 3D attachments because honestly, with this set being called Dreadnaught, it would be a sin not to envision him as an absolute juggernaut of dread. This couldn't be some twink. Nope. On this channel, we respect the sacred. And with many little tweaks that I won't bore you with, the 3D model of my Dreadnaught remake looked something like this. Yeah, for now, of course. With my model finished, or at least the mesh itself, there was only one thing left to do. The thing that takes almost all the time. Yep, time to texture my upgraded bald man. As always, the first stage of the painting process was to find my basic colors, values, and basically sketch my way into the first hint of what this fellow was going to look like. This is not the first armor set I've painted. The first one I did was the High Warlord plate set. for which I painted over the original for a lot of it to speed things up. My second one was the Judgment remake, which was fully done from scratch, but also had a lot fewer little details to it. The third one was my Skyrim Dragonborn transmog, which also was done fully from scratch, but also the man was half naked. This one was a real demon. The amount of little details present in it meant that I expected to probably spend twice as long painting as any of the previous ones I mentioned. Having pushed and pulled my way to some decent distributions of lights, darks, blues, purples, blacks and greys, and make no mistake, a lot of push and pull it was, I was at last ready to begin drawing the placement of the finer details of the set, and painted on another layer to begin bringing them to life. Like I said, the original artist that designed this absolute cultural artifact of a set did not show me much mercy. There is a lot of them. The legs have this raised bit on the plates that stick out a little bit more than the rest of the plates, like a little elevated bit. Initially, I'd modeled this in 3D, but I decided to flatten it and to simply fake that depth in the texture. Like many of the smaller details on this model, it wasn't worth the polygon budget. Regardless if this goes into the game or not, you best believe that I'm gonna commit to the LARP that it is, and still go out of my way to optimize it. We had begun to reach the stage where I could really see this thing come together. Faintly, sure, but surely. An embryo flourishing into a fetus. A way left to go, make no mistake, but clear enough an image of what it is to become in due time. It is a painful reality that so much time goes into that first stage of splatting blobby colors and values around, trying to lay that foundation and find those basic shapes, but at the same time, all that labor sweetens the reward of when it gets there. You shrink down that brush, and begin laying down those highlights, boosting those shadows, breaking up those surfaces, and it all begins to suddenly come together. I mean, it still took a pretty damn long time in real life. You're watching this at 20 times speed or something, but still, you know, just look at these gloves coming together. Oh, speaking of which, I scrapped the gloves. It was a decent initial idea, I feel like, but just looking at it for all this time failed to sell me on it. Shout out to Flora for giving me his 2 cents as well. I gave them a shot. They were fine, but they were not Dreadnaught. You know what was Dreadnaught? Dreadnaught. I decided to make a version of the original ones. Slight tweaks, sure, but still the same glove. Not only did I revert back to the source material, but I tripled down on the bulk. The previous one had no plate on the inside of the arm, just on the outside, and it just lacked that beefiness that I want my Juggernaut of Dread to embody. Having corrected course, I picked up where I left off, painting in more and more detail. The biggest project I'd done before this was the undead horses, where I made like 8 mounts for a single video. But honestly, I think that everything combined, this video might beat it in terms of hours spent. The modeling was an undertaking, but the sheer amount of details that needed painting here really was something else. Oh, another course correction. After painting the breastplate onto the base model, I decided to quadruple down on the bulkiness and model a 3D chest piece for it, as well as some 3D arm plates that I would do later. It looked fine the way it was, but Dreadnaught doesn't look fine. Dreadnaught looks awesome, so it needed to go from fine to awesome. I don't make the rules. Anyway, so I was saying, this was some good practice. I actually did most of this work back in October, but I was in a tricky spot with time, so I put off committing to the video for a while. A number of you actually commented that my painting skills had improved under the videos I did after that, and I like to think that that's no coincidence. Oh, and fun fact, this was gonna be Bloodfang initially, but as I was gearing up to begin that project, Blizzard announced their Tier 2 remake, which, thank God that didn't happen a month later. Yeah, that would have been fun. Special thank you to my awesome supporters on Patreon and channel membership. Jupe. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be able to put the hours into this channel that I do. Oh, a special shout out, as always, to the Ultra Mega Chats, Dinkeldork, Flora, and Wallace Vienna. You guys are awesome. hey, thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. If you want to see more, like and subscribe. And comment. If you want to support me in doing more of this kind of stuff, consider becoming a channel member or a patron. Or just say something really nice to me in the comments. That'll keep me going. No one ever says nice things to me. Oh, files for this are going to be on Patreon again as well. You can download them for free, even if you're not a member. Have fun with them. No need to give me credit or anything. Just have fun, okay? Bye!